let's get started. So, I sent an email out today. I have updated the midterm exam review document, which means that all of the Kahoot challenges are live. The midterm is going to be next Thursday. And on Tuesday, we're going to spend class going through the Kahoots, checking out the questions. If you have any questions asked, we'll do it on Tuesday. And if Kahoots are not a viable way for you to review, please talk to me, because it's, I think it gives people quite an edge to be able to do the Kahoots. And if you can't for some reason, then we'll find another way to help you. And for those who commonly stream the class, on March 14th, the exam is in class, and that's a mandatory day. So that was in the syllabus. We want everybody here to be writing the exam. If you have a problem with that, email me to let me know, and we will try to find another time where you can write the exam. All right, so there's 40 questions. It's multiple choice, true, false type questions. Some you have already seen in the quiz that we did, which was on chapters 1 through 4. Some you will see very similar questions in the Kahoots. So that's why it's really useful to prepare using the Kahoots. So in class Tuesday, we're going to run through those. Now, I highly recommend, I always recommend if there's a review session, I think it's a really good idea to come in for the review session as well as the exam. So here's the deal. Our lecture will be live streamed, but I can't guarantee that Tuesday's lecture would be available for you in time for you to look at it archived and to actually, for that to be useful to you. So if you're counting on having a live face-to-face type of review, then do come to class. If you think you can manage it with Kahoots, or if you're available to stream it, fantastic too. So it's just a heads up that the archived version will not necessarily be available to you with enough time to actually review in advance. So we'll be doing that on Tuesday. Any questions about it now, though? No? All right, terrific. So there's that. And I sent an email about it to everybody. So this week we've been talking about advertising. So we will continue on with that topic today. Let me open up those PowerPoints. It's probably capital CH. Really? So, no results? Let's look in the downloads folder. Hi, Kira.
Hi.
How are you? Good?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm a little late.
No worries. Glad you're here.
Yeah.
Let's just see here. There they are.
After the session.
Conversations are how do you do that online? You can't just click on it? Okay. Okay. Oh, there it is. Awesome. Slideshow. All right. Do be sure to get your name down on the attendance sheet eventually. Don't forget. Yep. So, can you hear me?
Yes, so we're having a little technical difficulties with the stream, but it will be still posted on YouTube, and we're working on getting that stream live.
Okay, I'll just type that into chat now so that if anyone's in chat, they'll find out. Thanks, Alex.
No problem.
Okay, so where's the chat? There's chat. Okay. put that out there for everyone. Did that work? Okay. Well, that's up there. Righto, so last class we talked about, or as we always do, we start out with early history. We talked about, first of all, advertising as finally being the solution to the problem of how to pay for content on the networks that were created in the 1920s, and the development of different forms of advertising, which for a long time the primary form was through show sponsorship, and we did see examples of shows sponsored by Chesterfield and that kind of thing, where the actual name of the product is in the name of the show, and the sponsor controlled the program content. Often the show was actually produced by an advertising agency, which was it was kind of like viewed as part of the advertising strategy for a brand. Would be to we'll make a sitcom. So rather than just producing short commercials, they did whole shows actually. But we saw that one key moment in that was the quiz show scandals, where because the quiz shows themselves, which were enormously popular at the time, were associated with different brands, when the whole scandal that we talked about in I'd say week 3 or 4 of our class, where it turned out that those shows were rigged and that they gave the answers to telegenic or sort of star contestants and stuff, and there were congressional hearings, and all of this came out that not just one show, but many of them did this. And so it really looked bad for the brands that were sponsors of those shows, and that plus the need to kind of diversify the marketing opportunities within a show led to what we currently have, which is spot advertising. Which is, short 60-second or 30-second advertisements delivered in what they call pods or clusters within television shows or radio shows. So they used to do that live, and now, of course, there's a gigantic industry as putting out, audio and video advertisements has moved to specialized shops that do it, specialized advertising agencies, and we took a quick three-part look at the history of tobacco advertising from early days, where the Lucky Strikes campaign that Edward Bernays organized, which is rightfully famous. Made a campaign for Lucky Strikes, which called these cigarettes torches of freedom, and marketed them through basically having suffragettes, early feminist agitators in a parade, all of them walking down the street smoking cigarettes in order to kind of set up cigarette smoking as a kind of a provocative and emancipatory type of act. If you smoked a cigarette, you were going against the patriarchy or the forces that wouldn't give you the vote, wouldn't give you the right to work, and that kind of stuff. So brilliant work from Bernays, and then we took a look at sort of a 1950s Chesterfield sponsored show where a team of experts was sucking on cigarettes and giving their scientific opinion about the flavor of Chesterfields, and then we talked about how that stuff is now being excluded from video and print advertising, and so we looked at how. What's the name of the current e-cigarette that is so popular? Juul, right? Yeah, we looked at Juul and how they were using social media and events, very much the way Bernays, that was part of his strategy, but seeing how Juul was, promoting its product through those channels. So there are ways. Let's see. Yeah, down here is just a quick note about creative strategies, but you know, if we just look at the contrast between Bernays, who was interested in tying, you know, the cigarette package, the color of the cigarette package, he wanted to kind of upgrade the image of that product in the public's mind. So remember, he had, you know, Parisian designers of the day design gowns of that color, you know, because they were targeting women. So they got the top Parisian designers to use that color. So trying to create, you know, to bring up, hey, Mike, how are you? Come on in. So top Parisian designers, you know, using that color to help create associations, you know, classy associations. Hey, Caleb, with that product. So contrast that with the much more blunt sort of product advantage approach that Chesterfield showed us, which is like, it tastes better, you know. So there's just broadly a couple of strategies there. Either you're trying to promote the image of the product like Bernays did, or you're trying to sell the product based on its advantages, you know, which is more the Chesterfield approach. And even something as nebulous as whether you like the flavor of one cigarette or another could kind of be shaped into a pseudoscientific statement about the, you know, the advantage of that particular product, you know. So there's just a couple of approaches there, but you know, it goes along with the idea that image ads are, you know, are a strong and effective way of going about promoting this stuff. And then we saw some vintage television ads, which to me spoke to, you know, the how long you know, if you can put an earworm or you can put a kind of an early viral ad into public consciousness in 1960s or 70s, and we've still heard of it. We're still kind of familiar with it generations afterward. You know, Mikey, he likes it, or that kind of stuff. It's pretty amazing that you can seed the public memory effectively enough with a message, and it will last that long, right? Okay. So we're shifting a little bit from the content, which was last class, and thinking about, you know, helping you write about your discussion. Remember, if you haven't yet done the discussion for the week, it's advertising awareness, and it's online. You can shoot in an answer before Sunday and get your credit for that. Now we're switching a little bit to sort of more industry concerns. We did say that we moved from the sponsorship model through to pods or clusters of 60-second ads that are called spots. So spots, they come in clusters, right? That in broadcast TV, clusters of spots are, you know, let's say 50% network and 50% local station ads. You guys ever, I mean, if you, this is now a question that I can no longer ask with great assurance, but if you do watch television, have you noticed a variation in the quality of ads as you watch? Can you pick the ones that are local versus the ones that are from the network? Yeah. What are those characters? Mike, you spoke up a little bit, and then Rick?
You go ahead.
Oh, Rick, go ahead.
Well, the local ones are usually more like annoying and low quality, low production value.
Yeah, low production. Sorry, Chris?
Car dealerships.
Car dealerships, yeah, that would be common. Anybody else notice?
Like for like
Cars
the
for
mall
kids.
or something like
The mall.
a used car rent sale or whatever, like
Right.
or
Exactly.
tent sale. Like,
Crazy Jones.
Right, so, and those are sometimes the funniest ones to watch when they're, you know, the real bad ones are put together on YouTube. But certainly car dealerships, restaurants, those can be pretty bad because the food can look so unappealing and, you know, when it's not done well. Shooting food is, you
Olive
know,
Garden.
yeah, shooting food is something that, you know, it takes a professional food photographer to do well. And honestly, a lot of these local station ads, they're shot by the news crew. The news crew who, if they're not busy, the ad sales team at a local station will say, look, we'll give you an ad for free if you sign up for a flight of advertising spots with us. So a lot of these local station ads don't cost the client anything to produce, but unfortunately they look like it too, right? So they're, they may be written by an intern or by someone, just who's not a professional copywriter, and definitely shot by a news photographer, not somebody who is schooled in, making things look really good. Versus your network ads, they're going to look really, polished because they're done often by, national agencies, big agencies that do them. So this would be, the broadcast approach. And cable, well, there's 2 points to this. First of all, cable acts exactly like terrestrial broadcast in the sense that a cable channel will supply about 50% of the ads, and the cable operator itself can insert another 50% of ads as well. So it's a common sort of 50-50 deal. So Comcast showing ESPN, well, ESPN will sell half the ads, and then Comcast gets to insert the other half for themselves. Chris?
Are they mandated to show more local ads like broadcasters, or do they kind of show whatever they want?
Pretty much whatever they want. They can go national, they can go local as well.
Yeah.
It depends on them. Now, cable companies now have the ability to geo-target, so they can deliver different advertisements to different communities. So like, San Jose Comcast will give something different than San Francisco Comcast. So they can target pretty much just as well as a local television station now. It wasn't always the case. They didn't always have that kind of control over what they did. Yeah. Mike?
I always thought I'm confused. I always thought cable is just depend on they are available in the area or not. But just I think cable is not available.
On your basic cable tier, the must-carry rule, review, but the must-carry rule says, yeah, you got to have every ABC, CBS, NBC affiliate. But they also now have, since the 1980s, developed a lot of different what they call cable networks, which are ESPN or even HBO has to be considered that. BETV and MTV and et cetera, et cetera. So those are basically channels that only exist on the cable service, and they carry advertising too. Most of them. They don't have to, but HBO has resisted, but most of the others, they have advertising. So here's the point. The other point about this that's interesting is that just the way that we saw radio broadcasting diversify itself into specific formats of different music, which are designed to kind of split up the audience in the market into different demographic groups. So, again, to broadly stereotype, but those classic rock stations are there to reach men of a certain age, and the AC stations are there in order to, reach people in the office who, again, true or not, it is considered, and they do research on this, so that audience skews slightly more female. So those stations are there for that, and it's very imprecise, but that's the way it worked. So just the way that radio broke out into different formats of music to capture different parts of the audience, cable programming has broken out into what we see as, a plethora of, obviously the MTV audience has a particular demographic that the ESPN audience is different, right? So the ability to develop literally hundreds of channels allows, a fragmentation of the audience into smaller clusters, which can then be sold to advertisers. So if you have a network which shows a lot of home improvement shows on it, you might program 4 or 5 in the day. You can create special relationships with national hardware store chains or even local hardware store chains and stuff, because you figure that's your audience. They're going to want to go buy some plumbing parts or something like that. So the reason we see this, it's a broad trend toward niche audiences or fragmentation or whatever, but it breaks it down in a way that's very attractive to advertisers. Same idea, in radio, you program for narrow slices that are different one from the other. You can sell more effectively. Same thing here, basically. So, you'll have automotive as a vertical, home improvement, fashion and luxury goods is another vertical, so on. So they'll all have their particular channels, and sports is a massive one, right? So I guess this is not news to you guys, but that's sort of what we saw there. At the same time, the magazine industry is putting out hundreds and hundreds of new titles, before they all got killed by the internet. But that's what's happening to all these little local sort of cable channels too. So, from a business perspective, advertising identifies the target audience, differentiates the products, generates the revenue, shows benefits of product, helps brand a product, create a brand image. So, awesome. From a consumer perspective, a lot of people, well, there's a general view that it's really not very, the ads are basically, they don't really help us. There's no upside to it, but there's a lot of other people who push back saying, you can definitely get, economic benefits out of advertising, a social benefit in the sense that, you learn stuff. Even as products are marketed to us, we still learn useful information. So there might even be an educational component to some advertising. Who knows? Let's take a look, just a sec. So I'm going kind of a little off the agenda put by the textbook, but just want to show you specifically about radio advertising. Because we, as sort of career-oriented department, here we go. So this was given to me by a graduate, because this is typically
Research paper.
This was not a research paper. No, this was someone who went out and worked for a bunch of Clear Channel stations and printed this out and gave it to me. So it's old. It's not like we're putting out trade secrets or anything, but this gives you a sense of the nitty gritty. So and this description would also fit for working in advertising sales in a television station as well. And we'll, station operations, we can talk more about all the different jobs that there are in television and radio and even like CBS Interactive, online companies as well. They all have one thing in common. If they are funded through advertising, there's going to be the most important part of the station from a business perspective will be the advertising department, because that's where the money comes from. If you are a DJ, no matter how successful you are, you're secondary to a successful salesperson because you're a cost. If you're a performer, if you're a programmer, you cost money. The money goes out the door to you. But if you're in advertising sales, the money comes to you. So you're the most prized possession of any broadcasting or media company.
You mean like the quarterback for New England?
Sorry?
The quarterback for the New England?
I didn't understand, Mike.
They're like the quarterback.
Oh, the
football.
quarterback. Okay. Well, the quarterback I'd say would be the GM of the station, but they're definitely your star receivers for sure. Yeah, they can make more money than anybody else in a station or a company, except for the upper level management like the GM. And this is all from the several students I've had who've told me all about it over the years. But what I want to say is, think through if a career in broadcasting might not just be on the production end, but also on the ad sales end, and that's where people make a lot of money. The difficulty is that it's obviously full of rejection and challenging in a sense that you got to go out and sell everyday advertisements. But senior salespeople who, for instance, have relationships built up with car dealerships, et cetera, literally sit there and they receive the phone call that says, okay, we want this much. They make a 15% commission on everything they sell. So, if you're established with a lot of businesses that buy through you, the money rolls in without all that much effort. So then the question is, well, how do you get there? And that's where, it's painful and challenging. So my students who started off at Clear Channel as, after leaving school, gave me this sort of feedback, basically, of it saying, it's tough. You have to dress professionally every day. You get a list of leads, which are companies that have approached the station or have advertised with the station. Well, some of them are out of date. The company no longer exists, and so you start calling them, and you're trying to get interest there. You're, basically you're aware of any, businesses you go into. Would they potentially want to advertise? So you're talking up as much as possible. Now, if you're gregarious and that's your nature, then this could work for you. We have a student who, a Spanish-speaking student, because he's Latin American background, and he went right into working for Univision and has done really well. And he's just a personality who can, just enjoys talking to people and can basically sell his product just like that. So that was helpful. Big mouth? No, I wouldn't say that. But just somebody who you really
Take no for answer.
Oh, sorry. Take no for an answer. Absolutely, Mike.
Yeah.
And I apologize. I'm not
Same here.
understanding everything you say today. But you're right. Absolutely. There's a lot of rejection, that comes in any kind of sales job. But you just keep on going, So those are two things that I think are really important. So they were telling me, you're in your cubicle a lot until you actually get interest. Then you're running out the door with a laptop full of promotional material, which is being prepared for you. And, talking to the client, finding out what they want, and scheduling a second meeting for when your, sales manager will come with you. There's usually a closer who's more senior who comes in to sign, make sure that what you're promising is realistic, and so it's just a little oversight. But clients are gold in this case, so you really want, if you do get to the point where they're actually willing to try out advertising, then you really want it to go well. Stuff like that. You never sell individual spots. You sell what are called flights of spots. And that will mean you will sell, literally dozens of spots over a month or 2 month period. It takes that much to be able to prove to a client that this was worthwhile. If you put one spot up, it's like they're not going to know whether that made a difference to their business or not. So what's called a flight of spots is sold, which literally could have hundreds of spots within it. And it takes that kind of cumulative effect in order for anybody to know if this is being worthwhile. Now, the funny thing about this is, or interesting thing about this, is that all of these are all sold just the way hotel rooms are sold or airplanes are sold. This is a printout from software which has continuous update of the prices. There's never just, it used to be in the old day, there'd be a list. It's $25 for an ad, and that's it. No more. Now it's just like getting a hotel room. If you want it a long time in advance, it'll cost you more than if you want it, within a month, right? So the cost varies depending on when you're buying and also how much inventory is actually available, right? So percentage sold here, the week after this is generated, they've sold 92% of the spots that they have available. There's only 8% left, right? And so these become, more valuable, but usually people in advance, people can buy well in advance. So it's not so much a last minute thing as it is getting in the right window. Another thing here is you can see this is divided up into day parts. So AM, which we know the morning drive is the most lucrative time, right? Midday, which is not very interesting, and then PM, which is second only to the AM time period. So when you look through this, you'll see like a minute Monday through Friday in the morning was $455, right? Versus midday, it falls, well, $396, that's not too bad. They've sold a lot less there. But as you go through, wow, it's a bargain here, right? $170 there as you go through. So at this time period, sort of the top price that you were seeing, again, this is KISQ, right? Let's look. Right, so this is not a very highly rated station. Let's go to KMEL, which was the top station in the urban contemporary, right? So $870. So they were selling for about $900 a minute, basically, at that time. But you see the price goes down as you go further out, 600, 6. So it was averaging around 600
Welcome.
in the weeks ahead. Yeah.
Saturday is only 64.
Yeah. So weekend, overnight, it's pathetic, right? So this is why, you know, it's really not. There's no one driving to work on Saturday morning, so you can get it for nothing practically.
They still sold less than half.
Right. Yeah. So at that price, they are going to sell. Yeah, but way lower, a tenth of the price. You know. So this they call it a rate card, right? But all of this is just generated by a computer, and it would give you discounts depending on how many you buy. And you know, you see it matters by day part, exactly when you buy. And also, I don't know if it's reflected here, but if you think the 4th of July, you know, it's a pretty big holiday event, but maybe there's a lot of sales and stuff. So seasonal aspects will kick in there too. You know, before Christmas, it'll get more expensive and stuff. And so all of this is like dynamically priced. So as you as a sales rep would be talking to clients, you would, you know, be pulling this up on the computer, and you know, eventually a price comes out based on all of these different parameters and stuff. And you don't need to be you know, a computer programmer or something. You know, you're plugging in what the demand is, and the computer is, you know, coming up with the offer basically. So in radio, it is much more of a local kind of business, so much more of local businesses working directly with them. Versus if this was TV, there would be an ad agency involved doing the buying, or maybe there are separate companies that are just media buying companies. They don't actually produce anything; they just make the deals with the, you know, all of the media outlets and stuff, and work with the client, you know, figuring out, like, you know, is it better for you to have some internet, some TV ads, exactly what you're going to buy. But in radio, it's a lot more kind of, you know, station by station type of transaction because it's very local radio. So then that means that the sales managers are a lot better at working with this type of stuff than necessarily you'd find in a television station, you know, where a lot of it would be happening kind of over your head through agencies or media buying companies.
So you're saying that for the radio, the manager will be more sensitive to the local market needs.
Yeah, I think so, and also
Directly, right?
more capable of arranging what we call a flight of spots, like more capable of, you know, constructing like a schedule with hundreds of ads in it than necessarily someone in TV, where the ads are much more expensive, there's much fewer stations, and there's a lot more kind of network activity and national advertising.
This could be more flexible.
Yeah, here in I'd say that's correct about sales managers in radio. Yeah, they wear more hats. Let's say there will be a national sales manager in radio as well, who's mostly on the phone with agencies and buyers. CJ?
So like, this is just for like the on-air ads, or
Yeah.
or is like a online ad like a separate like thing?
I do see, so I can't answer you directly, I think, but I do see ads, like I check the job opportunities in these places, and the thing that you'll see most is digital sales.
Okay.
So there's going to be somebody at each of these stations who's just handling the internet sales. They might also do regular terrestrial too. I don't know if they sell them together. That's an interesting idea.
Because I know like all the iHeart channels, so they're all like synchronized with their own like websites and like the apps and like all their social medias like
Wow.
together. So
Okay.
yeah.
So that sounds like it would all go together as
Yeah.
part of this. Interesting.
Package.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
they still want to keep an eye on how, like, who's buying and, like, you know what I mean? So they want to be able to tell who's buying from a digital ad, like who's buying digital ads versus who's buying radio.
Sure,
ads.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I would imagine they probably separate them
Okay.
just to be able to like get
It makes
clearer
sense.
numbers.
Right. It makes sense. I just don't know though
Yeah.
exactly how it goes now. I have lost touch with all the people who are feeding me this stuff. Although I know Kirsten still works for Entercom, so I could.
呢個球好嘅。
Sometimes when they don't talk to me, I worry that they've lost their jobs or stuff like that. But I think people just get busy. Or, you know, I worry that they think, you know, God, I'm not going to tell anybody to do this because it's so tough. That's
Right.
another possibility because it's a lot, you know, it's a lot of work. And they come in and they're proud of what they do, but they're tired, you know, because it's a lot of work, any one of these jobs. So that was just anyway a kind of a dip into broadcast advertising, and you know, again, I think this, if you have the drive and the personality for it, then you can definitely make more money in this than in, you know, production.
Really?
So, yeah, and the other thing is typically administrative positions in radio or television they go to successful people out of advertising. Like you won't find a crazy shock jock who becomes a GM of a station or something, no matter how much big a celebrity they were. You'll find the GMs they came up through advertising because that's, you know, they're viewed as like producers of cash, basically. So, yeah, there's just something to keep in mind that it is a possibility, and you know, for some of our students, it is really paid off. Although they work hard at it, but who doesn't work hard at what they do? Okay, so talking ad agencies, right? They break down into different types of agencies. Has anyone worked in advertising here, by the way? I keep talking to you as though it's just like, you know, you're fresh out of high school, but that's not the case at City College for sure. Okay, so nobody's worked in advertising.
Maybe you should ask who want to be.
Who wants to work in advertising? Nobody raises their
Production.
There you go. I'm not sure. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're undecided. That was my case when I was in college. That's for sure. Yeah. There are different types of agencies that are distinguished by what they do. So a full-service agency would, you know, as it says, plan, research, create, produce, and place ads. So the placing, as you saw, that's a very particular type of expertise. So to kind of say, okay, you know, you want to advertise this particular type of product. Does it make more sense to go digital? What types of sites do you want to be on? Does it make more sense to do a television ad, which is going to cost you more than, you know, anything else? And so sometimes those functions are in, you know, media buying services where they just focus on placement, and they're experts at that, and they can also make it profitable. Versus like a full service agency, it's got to be pretty big in order to have people who can, you know, organize the production as well as pitch the idea, the concept, and all of that. So a full service agency does it all. The creative boutiques focus on just, you know, the plan, research, and create parts. And then media buying services, they do the buy part. So, you know, it may be specialized. And then, so interactive or digital agencies, those are the ones that handle the internet type of stuff. So,
Welcome.
yeah.
Can you say a little bit more about the media buying service? I'll give an example. I'm not clear
Let's see. I think is.
if we have information.
I think one of the big ones is
That's how-
Omnicom. They may have diversified into having some, you know, kind of full service as well.
Oh,
Our agencies, yeah.
okay.
This looks like
They're local,
I'm
right?
probably out there. I mean, most of these services have offices like in dozens of cities. Yeah, media buying companies. Let's just see. Well, let's see what they are here. This might help you kind of target as to where to go. I'm not sure. I'm just looking for something big enough that I would have. There's a whole bunch that I've never heard of.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
What that date? I have no idea.
I'm not sure. As you can tell, there's a lot of them. S50 plus. Let's just check this out, just for names. I mean, but 10 years ago, Omnicom was definitely had normal. I mean, it's just wow. There's 50 of them for sure. Okay, we'll stop wasting time on this. But top companies. Let's just see. Oh no, that's something different. Okay, we're getting distracted on this. But so basically, Mike, if you were an advertiser with a product, right? From the creative side, you'd be dealing with people who are thinking up, well, how can we best sell this? What kind of image do we want to give the product? Or, right? Planning and research, right? And then production. So you would have hired, production managers. You would have directors on call. You would have cinematographers and stuff. And I mean, I used to work in Montreal, and so, there were people who would make a big name in, like they'd make a movie or something, and then they could make a dozen commercials that year and make a fortune, in a way that their movies never did. That's the production side. But somebody has to sit with a client and say, okay, there's magazines, there's newspapers, there's websites, there's radio, there's television. What percentage of each do you want to, promote your product in? And they know the cost of each of these, services, and they say, well, you'd be wasting your money with a TV ad because your product is really only relevant to this very narrow niche of people. So if you're going to go TV, I suggest you go to cable TV and put it on, this type of channel. It'll be a lot less expensive than going to the Super Bowl, where 300 million people will see it, but only like 20 million of them are even vaguely interested in your. So that's what a media buying company is an expert at doing, is giving you those options, basically.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. And sorry I took us off on a little excursion through the web, but it's no, I've also done this. Let's move ahead. Where are we? Did I even? Yeah, we got into cable. Okay. All right. Yeah, I had just a view into. Is this where I want to be exactly? Sure. Yeah. All right. So just a couple of things. So this just gives us like a 5-minute look into working in an ad agency, just to get a sense of what that might be.
I'm Christina Fanzolini, NYU alum class of 2012. I majored in media, culture, and communications. I now work at McCann, New York, which is one of the oldest advertising agencies in the world. I'm a brand strategist, so what that means is I help determine the strategy for brands to come to life in the real world.
Hey guys, this is Nikki with Way Up, and I am here in the McCann, New York offices. McCann is the oldest ad agency, and I'm here with Christina. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Christina works here at McCann, and I'm curious, what is an ad agency?
So I would say an ad agency, basically everything you see out in the world, all the ads or commercials, social media even, there's probably an advertising agency behind it, and it basically helps a brand decide how they want to look to a consumer out in the world.
Great. So you guys work with clients to help them sort of bring their brand to life out in the real world.
Yeah, so brands are our clients, and basically what we do is everything from start to finish, from the idea to making it happen.
Nice. So what do you do at McCann?
So I'm a brand strategist. A brand strategist basically decides the direction a brand should be going and why. So everything from what's going on in culture to what's going on with consumers to what the brand can bring to the table in a differentiated way. Basically combining all of that together into a strategy and then determining how that brand will bring it to life in the real world.
Cool. So what are all the different roles at an ad agency that somebody can have?
So there's 3 main departments, and then there's production. The first one would be account. So account basically does all the client management, the day-to-day, managing client expectations, timelines, budgets in conjunction with production. And then there's brand strategy. So there's different kinds of strategy. What I do is brand. There's media strategy, which is a media agency. There's communication strategy, which is determining basically how people will see it in the world through different mediums. And then there is creative, which is pretty self-explanatory, and that's the people that actually write the scripts, that write the Facebook posts, that write the print ads, all that.
Wow, sounds like you guys do everything.
Yeah, it's definitely start to finish.
Nice. Can you give us an example of a project that you've worked on recently that you're really proud of, or?
So the New York Lottery is one of my brands, and they do a lot of fun stuff. You guys have probably seen it on, if you're in New York, a lot of the subway ads, a lot of the commercials. But basically, it's you'd make a much better rich person, and they're really funny.
I think I would.
Yeah, we all do, right? So the insight was basically that New Yorkers think they're better than everyone else, because we are. And we think that we could do being rich better. So basically the campaign mocks super rich people and like the ridiculous ways that they spend their money. And it's just super funny. There's one that's like a bathtub full of wine and the guy like bathes in wine every day. There's one guy who spends like $3 million on like insects from Africa, and like they're just really funny. And they just are really, what brand strategists do is try to find that nugget of truth and then help the creatives bring it to life.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what's the culture like at an ad agency?
It's pretty casual. Everyone wears pretty much what I'm wearing. Like, there's definitely no suits and ties. It's casual. A lot of people care about fashion and are trendy. The creatives are definitely in jeans and tees. In terms of the atmosphere, we try like the actual workspace is all open space, so no one other than maybe like the top guys have an office. It's all big tables. Open seating, a lot of like lounge areas where you can just take your laptop and go sit on the couch and work that way. We have, McCann and a lot of agencies have kind of a bar or social cafe where you can go to and host meetings. So meetings don't necessarily have to be in an actual room.
Yeah.
And the socializing is definitely big. Like people hang out. We have like a ping pong table. We have a pool table. We have a lot of cool things. We do like tournaments and stuff like that. We have a softball team. So all of that's pretty common in advertising.
So it sounds like it's a pretty inclusive and vibrant culture.
Yeah, and it's definitely very young. Even the older employees have a young spirit.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I'm a recent grad or a current college student, and I want to go into an ad agency as my first job or an internship. How do I do that?
So I would say 90% of people who work here got in through an internship. Basically, there's 2 forms of internships, right? I'm not graduated yet. I'm still in the middle of college. I'm figuring out if I even want to be in advertising.
Yep.
So that would probably be between sophomore, junior, senior summer. So that's kind of your base, right? You're figuring out if you want to do it. You're getting some experience. Then there's the one that you really got to focus on. So that would be the one after graduation. So the summer right after senior year, once you've graduated, that's where you've got to focus, and that is ideally where you'll get your first job. By the end of the summer, it's kind of a trial run, and they'll be able to determine if they're going to hire you or not. They pretty intentionally make the intern groups like 80% non-grads and 20% grads, so they can focus on that 20% come the end of summer.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cool, so there you have it. Thank you so much, Christina. We're here in the McCann offices, and now you know all about how to get into the ad agency world.
Thanks.
Now who wants to work in advertising? I joke, but a great outcome for me would be for somebody, even if one student here discovered what it is they want to do next, I think that would be really successful. That would be awesome. So anyway, keep in mind, we talked about ad sales as being sort of stuffier and more, gotta wear a suit and stuff, but there is that possibility too of advertising. Yep. Interesting.
One of the company's culture.
Oh, very different. Yeah. Creative. Anything creative is,
You need to check that out first.
It has a very different feeling. But in ad sales, you will find a certain amount of stuffiness to, as sort of PR with the clients to make them feel like, yeah, you're buying something serious here, right? But the creative side is going to be zany. You're buying crazy people with great ideas. So it's part of marketing. All right, so just going through quickly this stuff. But, she touched on it in the video even. There's going to be different people touching a campaign, and some of them will be, helping research, both what the target audiences are and what channels you can reach them through, and then thinking about, well, what's important with the product that you want to put forward and stuff. And of course, this is going to come with people on the client side who are very involved in this. I mean, it's not like nobody in a company knows what their product is till they go see an ad agency and stuff. And understanding the media market, she also talked about that. Like, what kind of opportunities have you got in different media channels? And they just seem to be diversifying, right? Okay, so in this part of the textbook, it goes through just trying to highlight some of the potential benefits of the main channels, the main types of media that we've got. So this is very broad, very generalized. But again, if you were, a media buyer or working in that part of a full-service agency, you would, just instinctively know what's useful about radio, right? So one thing that we mentioned is radio is very local compared to television, right? So radio, it says here, 79% of ads are to local businesses, versus on television, only 24% are to local businesses. So that means that there's a whole lot more kind of ad salespeople, pounding the pavement and going to local businesses in radio versus television. There's a lot more people on the phone hoping that they'll call, get called to do national spot sales. Much less local, although there's a certain part of that, and that's probably your junior associates who are doing that. And what are they selling? They're selling 30 or 60-second spots. And secondarily, like on radio, you can sell, the DJ will talk about you, that kind of stuff. So there's additional inventory apart from spots in radio, which means that you can, have someone say their weekend in Tahoe was fantastic and plug the product that way. So what's good about radio? It's local. It's very flexible. You can buy, lots of spots or a few spots. They'll work with you. Versus TV, it's quite, rigid. Targets the audience through formatted music, right? So you get those particular categories, which are different than TV, which tends to, be very broad across a market. Every household has a television, so. Low production cost for sure. Doesn't cost much. Sometimes the station will, give you their star DJ putting their voice on your ad for free again. High reach, which means it can reach a lot of people potentially. And disadvantages, it's only audio. People tune it out sometimes. Messages, you have to produce a lot of spots. You have to change them around. Fragmented audience is both, it's both good and bad in that way. It always is, right? So, but, local, the ability to target, low cost is, I think, really the strongest points about radio advertising. Then we get into TV. So TV, as we saw, only 24% local. It's much more national and network sales, right? So if you were a local station, a local affiliate, the network will be feeding you about half of the spots that you actually play on the air. So you really don't benefit from those. You don't profit from it, right? Not directly, for sure. But if you're selling local ads, you take the money. And national advertising, which means, yeah, sure, the network is national, but also national brands will approach local stations as a group in order to put up their spots as well. So they may not decide that it's worth their while to buy through a network, but rather they'll buy directly with groups of local stations. So at every station, there's going to be someone on national sales to answer the phone and handle that type of thing. Okay, we'll come back to this in other weeks and stuff. But the way television advertising is sold, there is, in the month of May every year, something called the upfronts, which is a real ritual. And this is either in New York City for the English language networks and in Miami for the Spanish language networks. All of the media buyers and the ad agencies meet up at a huge week-long party organized by the broadcasters, where each day they're going to have, Radio City Music Hall, NBC will fill the room with media buyers. They'll bring out all of their stars. They'll have Jimmy Kimmel or God knows who will, that'll be for, ABC, I guess, who will come up and do stand-up and tell them about all the great shows that they've got coming out. And then they try to sell as much as they can in advance. That's why they call it the upfronts. And so last year, the upfronts sold about $8 billion of advertising in the week following the upfronts. And this is where you make bets on the shows that are going to come out, and you buy in advance. And so you get some deals that way. You get in on shows which are the new hits, and you lose sometimes. Show will be canceled, in which case they'll replace it with something else. And if you don't go to the upfronts, you can always buy later on in what are called the scatter markets. So that's during the year, they'll also sell you spots, but they may have sold everything interesting at the upfronts. So it's a real kind of motivation to jump in and buy already, right? So it's very opportunistic. Right? Other things, you don't just have to buy spots. We know product placement is actually part of the business, so you can buy appearances in shows. That has to be worked out in advance so it can actually be integrated into the show. There are sponsored programs still, but that's pretty rare. And then PSAs, which are just like a very marginal thing. I don't know why that's even on the list there. So advantages of TV advertising, very visual. It's the most impactful image technology that we have. Think of those car ads with, beautifully shot cars going through beautiful environments and stuff, right? At high exposure and high reach for sure, because, television is largely national and stuff. Interesting, ads blend with content. So that's true, definitely. Production with high values, high production values. The ads fit right in there. So what are some of the downsides? You guessed it, right? Channel surfing, DVRs, right? This is poison. This is poison to them. They used to, you couldn't skip the ads, but now you can skip the ads with DVR. So I mean, that is hugely difficult. And then the fragmentation of the audience is not so much something that television has done to itself, but in relation to all the other options that are out there now. Someone's watching Netflix, a lot of people watching Netflix, they're not seeing any of your ads on CBS or ABC, right? So you have literally 1/10 the size of the audience that you used to. So it's not your fault, but the audience has fragmented massively. And the amazing thing is, even though the audience has shrunk by 10 times, CBS still, for instance, manages to make a little bit more every year in ad sales, than they ever have before. So even though the audience gets smaller and smaller and smaller, people pay more and more and more to reach them. And so it's still very profitable, television advertising. At a certain point, it's going to start declining because the competition from other media is just, never ending. So cable advertising is quite a bit like regular TV advertising, but don't forget the cable operator has subscription fees that keep them rich. So Comcast does half its business selling ads and half of its business ripping people off with subscriptions, right? So that makes their business a lot more diversified than if CBS and ABC, right? Or a local television station, which can really only make money by selling ads. So they have envy of Comcast, except that, as we know, people are no longer getting a cable bundle anymore. They're called cord cutters. So cable's in trouble as well. simply because people are, not doing business with them anymore. Whenever you have a subscription-based economy, there's something called churn in the business, which refers to people coming in as a subscriber and going out as a subscriber. So you'll hear them talk about churn a lot. For instance, HBO, everybody with subscription has a problem with churn. And so what do you do? It's a little bit different from the broadcaster. The broadcaster wants a show that will run for 12 or 15 years. How I Met Your Mother or Big Bang Theory or something like that. They want that so they can create a lot of episodes that they can then rerun in syndication. HBO or Showtime or something similar, even Netflix, what they want is something that will get people to want to sign up to deal with churn. So they know that they've got 100,000 people leaving every month because, I don't know, it's too expensive for them or whatever reason. They know they have to replace them. So they want shows with high-profile creators and stars. They don't care if they last for 3 years because they become part of the wallpaper. They want a new thing every year with big profile project. Why? Because that says, oh man, I really want to see that. I love that creator. I love Shonda Rhimes, but now to see her new shows, I'm going to have to go sign up with Netflix. Or, I love this or that. I got to go and sign up with HBO. So that's why they don't want a show that lasts for 15 years. They want a new show that'll blow everybody's mind, get them to subscribe, and after 2-3 years, they'll probably drop it, unless it's really, really exceptional. But because of their type of business, it helps them counter churn. So that's why you see those really high-profile shows like Westworld pour money into it. Anthony Hopkins, huge stars, but in a few years it's probably off the air because it's a whole kind of different business. Will we see those guys actually put advertisement in? I'm not sure, but that's always an option. Netflix can come up with a ad-supported part of its service. You might see that. Never know, right? And definitely Hulu will play that game. They call it freemium, right? It's like free to start, but you got ads. Pay a premium price, you'll get rid of those ads. Right.
Yeah, Hulu does that though.
Hulu does
you
that.
pay for it, but you still get ads.
Is that right? Yes, you can never escape.
Some shows give you ads. Yeah, I know a lot of people that unsubscribe because of that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So that's all part of their
So
calculation.
why pay if you're going to show me ads?
Right. Yeah, I want it completely ad-free. Well, I'm sure there'd be a kind of pushback at Netflix if they started putting ads in as well. Yeah, but they could still make the calculation. It would be worth doing. Woo, okay, well finally we get to digital. So obviously internet advertising, the new thing on the block, but gives, creates a lot of competition for old school broadcast advertising, but we're really talking about a medium whose targeting potential, its targeting abilities are so radically different than what we could do in regular broadcast media. It's a whole different thing. Whereas broadcasters could really only deliver you sort of broad demographics based on the segmentation that, putting different types of music together into a format could offer you young people or old men or, middle-aged women, or you can get, kind of broad stuff, broad demographic groups, which are differentiated enough to sell. But as we know, we're constantly being tracked and monitored, and our every little foible is being accounted for in very finely targeted possibilities of online stuff.
Sorry, I wanted to ask, on the previous 2 slides, you put zipping and zapping. What is that?
That's just changing channels. Channel surfing.
Channel surfing?
Yeah, which is, just the ability to
Zipping and zapping.
go somewhere else. Yeah. And by the way, these are from the textbook. I didn't actually type any of these. I mean, oh my God. So yeah, just to let you know, it's not me, but it's it is a good summary of what's out there. So there's So we talked just very briefly about the ability to target in a very fine-grained fashion. In terms of ad sales. So there's different types of products that we're all, familiar with. On your web page, there's going to be banner ads, and there's going to be what are called skyscraper ads. So, something running down the side of the page, right? And this will be a banner, and this is your web page, right? So they sell these, and they sell these based on what they call impressions. That's the idea that if you go to the page, you are exposed to this, just like if you flip through a magazine, you would see this. So that's called an impression, the idea that a unique individual actually saw these things. So these are display ads, which are a lot like magazine ads, and they're sold based on impressions. And then you have a similar thing with pre-roll, mid-roll, and post-roll inserted in your YouTube videos or your Hulu videos. Those are just a lot like regular old commercials, right? So if you see a 30-second ad before your video goes up, that's called a pre-roll ad. And then post at the end or mid-roll. It's really a lot like television advertising. What's new is the interactive aspect, right? Where when you click on something, well, different things happen. Those are viewed as more valuable in the sense that where is this going to be on a slide here? Sorry about that. We only have a minute, so let's just, should I even go to that next idea, or let's just pick it up on Tuesday based on that? But the idea, though, there's something unique and interactive. There's something called cost per click. So this is where the advertiser only pays if someone clicks on it. Cost per transaction, the advertiser is only pays if someone actually goes through and orders something or something like that. So these are particular to interactive, and we can get the important information about that before we do our review next class. So next class, Tuesday, is the midterm exam review. We'll go through those Kahoots, and we'll just finish up quickly this little bit. But we'll really focus in on what information is necessary to do well on the exam. And so that's it.